Today, we're getting into a story that's, well, it's shocking, it's complicated, and it took nearly 3 decades to reach any kind of conclusion.
Absolutely. We're talking about the murder of Sister Abhaya, a 21-year-old nun in India back in 1992. Justice didn't really arrive until December 2020.
28 years. It's almost unbelievable. The twists in this case, they feel like something out of a movie. It wasn't just a local tragedy either. This became huge news in India.
Right. It really captivated the nation and raised some serious questions about the justice system, about power, about truth.
So let's set the scene a bit. It's 1992. The town is Kottayam in Kerala, southern India. It's known for being a predominantly Christian area, lots of churches, convents.
Yeah, these institutions are really central to life there. And one of them was the St. Pius X Convent. It also had a hostel, for young women, including many studying to be nuns.
And Sister Abhaya was one of them, just 21. Sounds like she was very dedicated, both to her faith and her studies.
Exactly. She was at a pre-degree college, sort of like a junior college, and she had big exams coming up.
So, to get ready for these exams, she decided to wake up really early on March 27th, 1992. Like 4 a.m. early, set her alarm and everything.
Started studying. The story goes, she greeted some other nuns who were also up, and then at some point, maybe needed a break.
Yeah, went to the kitchen, maybe for water, maybe just to clear her head before hitting the books again.
And that's where things get murky,
Mm.
because the next morning, Sister Abhaya is missing.
Which is strange enough in a convent setting. But then they go to the kitchen.
And they find signs of, well, something unusual. An open water bottle, water spilled on the floor, and one of her slippers just left there.
Doesn't sound planned, does it? More like something happened suddenly. An interruption.
And then, adding to this really unsettling picture, her other slipper is found near the convent well.
Near the well, that immediately points in a very specific, very grim direction.
It does. And then came the actual discovery. One of the nuns looked down into the well.
And found Sister Abhaya's body. Just imagine the shock. 1 minute, it's a normal day in the convent. The next, this.
Absolutely devastating for everyone there. The local police were called in immediately. An officer named V.V. Augustin started the initial investigation.
They brought in a photographer, documented the scene, the body, and then the autopsy, the post-mortem.
Right. And the findings there are really crucial for understanding everything that followed. The doctors noted cuts, bruises, and a significant head injury.
A head injury, but the official cause of death, they listed it as drowning.
But, and this is key, they also mentioned in the report that murder couldn't be ruled out, or rather, that it was a possibility.
So right away you have this contradiction. Drowning, but with injuries and a specific note about possible murder. And this is where the public starts having doubts, right?
Big time. It just didn't sit right with people. Why set an alarm for 4 a.m. to study if you're planning suicide?
Exactly. And the scene in the kitchen, the open fridge, the spilled water, the slipper left behind, it just screams sudden event, not something premeditated.
It felt hurried, interrupted, not like someone calmly deciding to end their life. So naturally, suspicion grew.
People started thinking this wasn't suicide, this was murder. And maybe someone was trying to cover it up.
The fact it happened inside a convent, a place expected to be safe, only fueled those suspicions. It felt like something was being hidden.
And the community was disturbed. This led an activist, Joan Ponaprakal, to form a justice committee. They started pushing for a real investigation.
Their pressure worked, to some extent. On April 16th, the case was taken away from the local police.
And given to the crime branch, a state-level investigative unit. You'd think, okay, maybe now we'll get answers.
Well, they investigated for months. But their conclusion, same as the local police: suicide.
Suicide again, even though the circumstances were so questionable.
And by this point, critical evidence was gone. Sister Abhaya was buried quickly, as per custom, her clothes destroyed.
So vital forensic evidence just vanished, making it harder to challenge the official story.
But the public wasn't buying it. Media attention was growing. Theories were flying around Kerala. There was this strong feeling that the official investigations weren't getting to the truth.
Reportedly, even some nuns inside the convent weren't satisfied. So with all this pressure mounting,
The case gets kicked up another level to the Central Bureau of Investigation, the CBI, India's federal agency for major cases.
so now the big guns are involved. This should be it, right? A fresh start, a thorough investigation by the CBI.
You'd hope so. They started their investigation, but then something really unexpected happened in 1994.
What was that?
A CBI officer involved in the case, Vargas P. Thomas, held a press conference. out of the blue.
A press conference by the investigating officer. That's unusual.
Highly unusual. And what he said was explosive. He claimed he'd been pressured, significantly pressured by his superiors to declare the case a suicide.
Wow. Pressure from within the CBI itself.
That's what he alleged. He felt so strongly it wasn't suicide that he took early retirement. Left the CBI almost 9 years early because of it.
That's a massive statement. It basically confirms the public's worst fears about a cover-up, doesn't it?
It certainly fueled them. Imagine the confusion, the outcry. Who was applying this pressure? Why was this case so sensitive?
So the CBI team carried on, presumably under a cloud now. What did they do?
Well, they tried to work with what they had. They did those dummy tests you sometimes hear about.
Using a doll to simulate the fall into the well?
Exactly. Trying to see if the injuries matched up with a fall versus being thrown in, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Trying to reconstruct it.
Did it lead anywhere?
Well, in 1996, they submitted a report.
Yeah.
And they concluded it was murder.
Okay. So progress.
Yes.
Yeah.
But they also said they couldn't figure out who did it. No identified suspects.
So murder, but we don't know by who. Not much use for prosecution.
Precisely. The court rejected the report. You can't just say murder happened without pointing fingers.
So back to square one. What happened then?
Another CBI team was formed. A new investigation started. This is becoming a pattern, isn't it?
It really is. So the new team digs in. What do they find?
In 1999, 3 years later, they also conclude it was murder.
Okay, consistency at least. But did they find out who?
Not yet. But their reasoning was stronger this time. They had a panel of 3 independent doctors review all the medical evidence again.
A fresh look at the autopsy report.
Exactly. And these doctors identified several injuries that hadn't really been highlighted or explained properly in the first postmortem, things that pointed away from a simple fall or drowning.
And didn't other people see injuries too? Nuns, the photographer.
Yes, that's important. Right from day one, nuns at the convent had said they saw more injuries on Sister Abhaya's body than were in the initial reports. The photographer, his pictures apparently showed marks that weren't officially documented early on.
So multiple sources pointing to injuries beyond just drowning or a simple fall. The case for murder seems to be building.
It does, but the CBI still couldn't name the killer. So 1999 report, it's murder. Court's response, rejected again, no suspects, no case.
This is just unbelievable. Years are passing, multiple CBI teams, everyone agrees it's likely murder, but no one can say who did it.
It's incredibly frustrating. So guess what? Yet another CBI investigation starts, this time leading up to 2005.
Don't tell me.
Same result. They conclude murder, but cannot identify the culprits. Report rejected by the court again.
13 years after her death, and they're still stuck. What was the public mood like by then?
Furious, absolutely furious. Activists were louder than ever. Conspiracy theories were everywhere. Media, public chatter. People pointed to the botched initial investigation, the quick burial, destroyed clothes, the missing diary.
A diary! Was there a diary mentioned before?
It came up in reports as potential evidence that disappeared.
Yeah.
Just added to the feeling of a cover-up involving, powerful people.
It seemed completely hopeless, like this would just remain one of those tragic, unsolved mysteries forever.
It really did. 15 years had passed since 1992. Witnesses had been questioned, some changed their stories, some had even died.
But then, 2007, something changed.
Something completely unexpected. A new witness emerged. And honestly, you couldn't make this up.
Who was it?
A thief. A man named Adaka Raju.
A thief. The key witness was a thief.
Yep, Adaka Raju. He came forward and admitted, look, back in 1992, I used to steal to support my family. It's what I did.
Okay. So what did he have to do with the convent?
He said that on the night of March 27th, 1992, the night Sister Abhaya died, he was at St. Pius X Convent.
He was there. Why?
To steal. He was planning to take copper lightning conductor rods from the roof. He went there under the cover of darkness.
Okay, so he's there to steal copper. What did he see?
He saw something suspicious. Very late at night, he saw 2 people on the convent grounds. A Catholic priest, Father Thomas Couture.
A priest. At the girls' hostel late at night? That's immediately questionable.
Very. And he also saw Sister Staffi there that night.
So Raju sees these 2 individuals at the convent at a very odd hour. Why didn't he say anything sooner?
Well, think about it. He was there illegally, committing a crime himself. Coming forward meant admitting his own guilt. He was hesitant. Understandably.
Makes sense. So what changed his mind after all those years?
He said when he heard the news the next day about Sister Abhaya's death, and the police initially calling it suicide, something felt wrong, deeply wrong. He knew what he'd seen, and it didn't fit.
So despite the risk to himself, he decided to come forward. That takes some guts.
It really does. He went to the police and told them exactly what he saw that night. You'd think the police would be all over this new lead, right?
It would. Finally, an eyewitness placing specific people at the scene.
But that's not quite how it went down initially. Instead of focusing on Father Couture and Sister Steffi, the police arrested Raju.
They arrested him for the murder.
Yes, their theory suddenly became, Raju broke in, Sister Abhaya saw him, she screamed, he panicked, killed her, and threw it in the well. Convenient, right?
Wow. Talk about shifting the blame. Did he confess?
No way. He insisted he was innocent of the murder, but they held him for 58 days.
58 days? What happened during that time?
Raju alleged he was tortured, put under immense pressure to confess to a crime he says he didn't commit.
Tortured and pressured. Did they offer him anything?
He claimed they did. Big bribes, money, a job, help for his kids' schooling, even a house. Just take the fall, basically.
Unbelievable. Trying to bribe him into a false confession.
And it gets worse. They apparently also tortured his scrap dealer, a guy named Shamir, trying to get him to back up their story about Raju being the killer.
Did either of them break?
No. Both Raju and Shamir held firm. Raju stuck to his story about what he actually saw, despite the threats, despite the torture allegations, despite the bribes. His honesty, especially given his background, was actually praised by the court later on.
Incredible resilience. So, with Raju refusing to confess and sticking to his testimony about the priest and the nun.
The focus had to shift, didn't it? The CBI started looking much harder at Father Thomas Couture and Sister Steffi based on Raju's eyewitness account.
And wasn't there something about a scooter earlier?
Right, that neighbor who initially said they saw Father Couture's scooter at the convent late that night, but then retracted the statement, claiming pressure. Raju's testimony maybe gave that earlier claim new weight.
And were there rumors circulating too?
Yes, persistent rumors about an inappropriate relationship between Father Couture and Sister Steffi. That added another layer.
So, with Raju's testimony, the scooter story, the rumors, the picture was starting to form.
Exactly. So in 2008, the CBI formally named Father Thomas Couture, Sister Steffi, and another priest, Father Jose Puthrakyle, as the main suspects.
Father Jose Puthrakyle, was he mentioned by Raju?
Not directly by Raju, but the CBI investigation led them to include him as a suspect at this stage.
Okay, so now we have named suspects. What about Raju? Did the defense try to discredit him?
Oh, absolutely. The defense lawyer brought up Raju's criminal record in court, like 10 previous cases, tried to paint him as unreliable.
How did that play out?
It kind of backfired. Raju didn't deny his past, he owned up to it, but he was absolutely consistent about what he saw that specific night at the convent. His story didn't waver, which actually made him seem more credible, paradoxically.
Consistency is key. So what happened with the three suspects?
They were subjected to narco analysis tests. This is a controversial technique, sometimes called truth serum.
Right, where they administer a drug to try and get truthful answers.
Sort of. It's meant to lower inhibitions. These tests were done in Bengaluru, overseen by Dr. Malini. The results were recorded onto CDs and sent to the courts in Kerala.
Okay, so what did the narco tests reveal? This must be the breakthrough moment.
Hold on, because here comes another massive twist.
Yeah.
The CDs submitted to the court, they'd been tampered with.
Tampered with. The official evidence CDs.
Yes. Dr. Malini, who oversaw the tests, was suspended. An analysis was done by the Center for Development of Imaging Technology, CDIT.
And what did the forensic analysis find?
Extensive editing. On all three CDs, Father Couture's CD was edited 30 times, Father Jose's 19 times, Sister Steffi's 23 times. Clearly someone had messed with the evidence.
This is just layers upon layers of deception. So was the real information lost?
You'd think so. But then somehow, the original unedited recordings got leaked.
Leaked? How?
It's not entirely clear how, but they ended up being broadcast on a local TV station in Kerala. The original Narco tapes, out there for everyone to hear.
Wow. And what did those recordings say? The unedited ones.
They painted a very clear, very grim picture. According to the leaked audio, Sister Abhaya woke up around 4 a.m., went to the kitchen for water,
Yes.
and she walked in on Father Couture, Father Jose, and Sister Steffi together in a compromising situation.
Oh my goodness, so she saw something she wasn't supposed to see.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And according to the narco tests, to silence her, they attacked her. Sister Steffi allegedly grabbed a kitchen axe
Next.
and struck Sister Abhaya on the head, which matches the head injuries found in the very first autopsy all those years ago.
Chilling. And then?
Then, they allegedly dragged her body to the well and threw her in. to make it look like a suicide or an accident, a complete cover-up.
That's horrific. So after these recordings aired publicly,
The CBI had to question the 3 suspects again, confronting them with this leaked information.
were they arrested then and there?
They were arrested, but then released on bail in 2009. And interestingly, Father Jose Puthukayal was later cleared of all charges. The case against him didn't hold up.
So it came down to Father Couture and Sister Steffi. What followed the bail release?
A very long legal process. Numerous hearings, appeals. This dragged on from 2009 all the way to December 2020.
Another 11 years of legal battles after the narco tests leak.
Yes, but finally, in December 2020, the Kerala High Court delivered the final verdict. Guilty. Based largely on those narco analysis results, the leaked original ones, and crucially, on the consistent testimony of Adaka Raju, the thief.
So Raju's testimony held up all the way to the end.
It was pivotal. Father Thomas Couture and Sister Steffi were both found guilty of murder, sentenced to life imprisonment and fined 5 lakh rupees each.
28 years later, justice, finally. Largely thanks to a witness who happened to be stealing copper that night.
It's an incredible end to a decades-long saga. The truth coming out because someone was, as they say, in the wrong place at the right time, or maybe the right place.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? How justice can be delayed, obstructed, nearly buried. But sometimes, truth finds a way out, often from the most unexpected places.
Absolutely. This case highlights so much the difficulty of the journey to justice, how power structures can try to obscure truth, but also the importance of perseverance. And the role of chance, maybe.
Definitely. And the courage of someone like Adaka Raju, willing to risk his own freedom to tell the truth he saw.
A remarkable story of persistence against the odds.
So as you think about this case, maybe consider that. The role of chance, the power dynamics at play, and how sometimes the fight for justice relies on the most unlikely people stepping forward. Something to really mull over. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.